6 cards are going in the deck and 6 are coming out of the Miracle Worker precon, all for less than $2. Of the 6 cards, there will be 1 of each type. We got creature, sorcery, instant, artifact, enchantment, and land. Aminatu Veil Piercer is the face commander of the deck and will stay at the helm of this upgrade. She uses her surveil ability on upkeep to manipulate the top of your library to ideally find an enchantment to draw. You want to find an enchantment on your draw step because her second ability will let you miracle out that spell type, reducing the casting cost by 4 generic mana. Miracle is a keyword that triggers when you draw your first card in a turn. And yes, that does mean on your opponent's turn, if you draw your first card and it's an enchantment in this case, you can cast it. When upgrading the deck, I think the most important thing to do is increase the density of enchantments. There are 25 in the precon, but I think that number could be comfortably lifted up to 30. The other element you need to consider when upgrading the deck is if you want to take it in the direction of top deck matters or enchantments matter. There's no wrong answer there, but you need to be mindful of which direction you want to take. Now, I usually save the quick hitters for the end of the video, but I don't feel like it this time. So here are 10 bonus upgrades for those of us playing on a budget. The first few are ones you might already have if you've been playing with the recent sets. Entity Tracker is a 2 and a blue creature with flash that will have you draw a card whenever an enchantment you control enters or whenever you fully unlock a room. Enchantress effects being good in enchantment-based decks is not a revelation, but this effect being in blue is. There's also 3 rooms already in the deck, so you can take advantage of that unique room-based trigger. And while we're talking about rooms, Restricted Office / Lecture Hall is another one that will slot in nicely. Lecture Hall at 7 mana is a fantastic option to cheat out, granting every other permanent you control hexproof. I'm a big fan of cheating out Shark Typhoon and One with the Multiverse. I'm a bigger fan of not having them interacted with. Restricted Office is 2 and 2 white, destroying all creatures with power 3 or greater. This deck isn't all that small, so there may be some collateral damage, but importantly your commander Aminatu is under that threshold at 2 power. Extraordinary Journey is a card that I've been waiting to slot in somewhere, and Miracle Worker is a fantastic fit. The Miracle casting cost reduction will let you, for 2 blue, bounce 2 creatures to exile, and then let you draw a card once per turn whenever a creature enters from exile. Since you'll be bouncing your opponent's creatures, this sets you up to be drawing your first card on an opponent's turn. If you've got your library set up with an enchantment on top, you're looking at even more miracle value. Scroll Shift might be me cooking with some wild stuff, but hear me out. It's a 3 mana instant that will blink an artifact, creature, or enchantment you control, and then let you draw a card. The floor of this spell is a protection piece for your commander or other priority permanents. The ceiling is blinking a permanent with a fat ETB effect, maybe resetting a saga, and then drawing a card to hopefully miracle out yet another enchantment. Fear of Impostors isn't a spell you want to miracle out, but being able to counter any spell and have that ability attached to an enchantment is the exact combination this deck is looking for. You're going to be accruing massive amounts of value, much of which will be tied to enchantments, meaning the farewells and austere commands of the world can really mess up your game plan. This creepy little duder is a way to shut those answers down. Brain Surge, the brainstorm of tomorrow, is the 3 mana version of the spell, letting you draw 4 cards and put 2 back on top of your library in any order. When you cast the spell, the initial card drawn can be miracled. Then, the cards you put back on top can also be enchantments for you to miracle. They could be spells you want to surveil away with Aminatu, or shuffle away with a fetch land. Whatever the case, this spell lets you work with the top of your library in mighty good fashion. I like to focus on new spells because they might be in the pre-release kit on your desk right now, but there are some older spells that deserve some attention. Debtor's Knell is the old school version of Virtue of Persistence, but this spell is a 30th of the price. It can be perfectly reduced with Aminatu's miracle ability, leaving only 3 Orzhov between you and reanimating any creature from any graveyard at the beginning of your upkeep. More often than not, you want to put your pieces back into place on the battlefield, but you better believe I'll be snagging that Atali if I see it in your graveyard. Soothsaying is a top deck matters deck best friend. It's a single blue to get onto the battlefield, and the second ability is the Bee's Knees. X mana allows you to look at the top X cards of your library, letting you rearrange them in any order before putting them back. Make sure you hit your land drops, get some of your other miracles on top of your library, or in a real pinch, you can invest 3 and 2 blue to shuffle up and give yourself another chance at drawing the answer you need. Wavebreak Hippo is a great way to create miracles on your opponent's turn. The first spell you cast during each opponent's turn lets you draw a card, is the text on the creature, and that repeatable way to enable Aminatu is exactly what you're looking for. It's even an enchantment itself, so its cost can be reduced if you find it on top of your library. Index is a top deck matters staple, and for good reason. For a single blue, you look at the top 5 cards of your library and put them back in any order. I especially like this in Miracle Worker because you can surveil away 2 known cards with your commander on upkeep before drawing the spell you placed 3 cards down, letting you dig deeper into your library. And now it's time for the main event. I've got the 6 for 6 for you, and this time it's Halloween themed for a spooky holiday treat. Hit the subscribe button below if you love Halloween, or if you love candy, or costumes, or just want to make me smile. Erebos Bleak-Hearted is the creature edition. The God of Death is a 3 and a black, indestructible enchantment creature, with the creature part conditioned on devotion. I'm not worried about it becoming a creature because of the 3rd and 4th abilities, but a 5/6 indestructible creature is certainly welcome. Whenever another creature you control dies, you may pay 2 life to draw a card, and you can pay 1 and a black to sacrifice a creature, which would trigger the 3rd ability to give a target creature -2/-1 until the end of the turn. The deck out of the box does well enough to help you set up your library, but needs help drawing cards on your opponent's turn to maximize your miracle value. Erebos himself can be miracled out, can turn your dying creatures into drawn cards, which can be miracled out, and can enable that ability himself. Turns out, God can create miracles. Erebos Bleak-Hearted is 52 cents. Prognostic Sphinx is the creature cut. It's straight up too slow and doesn't have the stats to make up for it. The first time that scry trigger will help you is 2 turns after you cast the creature, and that's only if you can afford to attack with it. A free way to discard is my favorite part of the creature, but that isn't even helpful in this strategy. Haunting Imitation is the sorcery edition. For 2 and a blue, each player reveals the top card of their library. Then you will create a 1/1 flying spirit token that is a copy of each creature card revealed. When you cast this, you're essentially guaranteed to hit at least 1 creature, the creature that you left on top of your library. And with the creatures being much more value-oriented instead of combat-oriented, the 1/1 stat line isn't much of a bother. Mesa Enchantress will draw you cards. Archetype of Imagination has flying shenanigans. Heck, even Solemn Simulacrum will help you ramp. The highest upside will get you a creature from every player at the table. The worst case scenario, if you totally whiff, will let you at least put the spell back in your hand to try again later. Haunting Imitation is 15 cents. Aminatu Augury is the sorcery cut. It shares its name with your commander, so I totally get it if you want to keep it in for the flavor, but 8 mana is a steep price. The deck is built to set up the top of your library, but realistically, after 2, maybe 4 cards, it's gonna be a total crapshoot. Not to mention, this deck doesn't have planeswalkers or tribal spells to raise the card type total that you can cast for free. Cling to Dust is the instant edition. At 1 black mana, you exile a target card from a graveyard. If it was a creature card, you gain 3 life. Otherwise, you draw a card. Miracles aren't free, so having a 1 mana cantrip to enable a draw on your opponent's turn should leave you enough resources to get that miracle done. There's also the upside of being able to escape the spell. It's not as friendly a mana cost, but the option will always be there, and with Surveil baked into the commander, you should have the cards in your graveyard for that escape cost. On top of that, there's always the flexibility of casting this on a creature your opponent is trying to reanimate, to completely wreck them of that move and gain 3 life on the back end. Cling to Dust is 29 cents. Utter other end is the instant being cut. It's a catch-all removal spell, being able to target any non-land permanent, and better yet, exile that permanent. That said, 4 mana is asking a lot. If you want to keep this clean removal, all the power to you. I think this deck has enough other ways of interacting that losing this targeted removal spell shouldn't be a problem. Explorer's Scope is the artifact edition, and to be clear, it has to be the Fallout version to make it passably Halloween themed. This is a piece of equipment that is cheap to play and equip at 1 mana each. When the equipped creature attacks, you look at the top card of your library and put it onto the battlefield if it's a land. Surveil 2 with Big A. Miracle out your enchantment during your draw step, and then ramp during combat. Now I can't promise that every turn will go that smoothly, but in a strategy where you are working with the top of your library, it feels really nice to have other outs for value if you don't happen to find an enchantment in this particular case. Explorer's Scope is 10 cents. Orb Signet is the artifact being cut. I'll talk more about it later, but you really don't need the black Pip specifically, because the mana base is a little whack. With the reduced spell costs and overall lowering of the mana curve in this upgrade, trading one ramp spell for another is where you want to be. Price of Knowledge is the enchantment edition. I promise, the upgrades do lower the mana curve of the deck, but I grant you, this is ironic timing. Price of Knowledge is 6 into black and a horrifying sight to behold. Not that that dude could see it. Got him. The first ability removes the hand size restriction of all players. The second ability will deal damage to each opponent on their upkeep, equal to the number of cards they have in their hand. This is obviously something you want to be miracling out for 3 mana, and gives you an entirely new win condition. And frankly, when the heck else am I going to be able to highlight this spell that is so freaking cool? Price of Knowledge is 93 cents. Spiritsisters Call is the enchantment being cut. To be clear, this is because the upgrade is focused on the top deck matters strategy. I don't plan to have any enchantments or creatures I want to sacrifice, making this wall of text far less enticing. Conversely, this turns into something of an all-star in an enchantment matters style deck, especially with the additions of Glimmers and Duskmourn. Aminatu can surveil really good stuff into your graveyard, and I for one would be more than happy to sacrifice those 1/1 enchantment creature tokens to get a creature or enchantment from my graveyard onto the battlefield. Fetid Pools is the land edition. First reason, most important reason, is that cycling is pretty hot in a deck where drawing on your opponent's turn can let you cheat out enchantments. The second reason is that this land is a swamp. The precon comes with both Tainted Field and Tainted Isle, so having that swamp word on your land does make your mana better. Fetid Pools is 13 cents. Thriving More is the land being cut. The distribution of pips in the precon has white on top, followed by blue, and then black. The mana production has a distribution with black on top, white and blue each behind by 3. The numbers on MOX Field aren't exact because they don't count things like Obscure Storefront or Ash Barrens that can fix for any of the 3 colors. But your least used color having the most mana available demands some attention. It's nice that Thriving More lets you pick the color you need, but a tap land needs to go, and that color selection is as far as the utility goes. Alright, it's time for the super secret, not really budget bonus meme, being Conch Horn. It's very similar to Brainstone, with the ability to sacrifice itself. In this case, you draw 2 cards and put 1 card from your hand back on top of your library. I never knew this card existed, but I love putting janky old cards in decks that could use them. So if that interests you as well, it can be found for about $3.50. All 17 cards featured are less than $10, and only 6 if you exclude Conch Horn. Your official 6 editions for $2 are on screen now, with all of those cards in a deck list that you can find in the description below. While you're down there, don't forget to subscribe and like the video. And now you gotta tell me, what budget ad has put in work for you? What precon do you want to see next? Let me know in the comments. I'll catch you next time for some more monkeying around.